Florida State has had one of the weirdest turnarounds in recent college football history. They had an undefeated season and an ACC title in 2023, and many felt they were snubbed from the college football playoff. But 2024 was a historically bad season for the Seminoles. They went 2-10 and finished at the bottom of the ACC. They lost so much depth to the draft and to the transfer portal, and they just weren't a super talented roster. The area I was most concerned about, however, was the secondary. They lost Renardo Green, they lost Jerrion Jones, and they really didn't have a ton of depth. But one bright spot for the Seminoles was an emerging young star on the back end. Azareyehthomas is a super intriguing player. If you look at ESPN box scores, you're not going to think much of Thomas, but he has shown some really high-end tools and could be a very intriguing cornerback to watch at the next level if he's utilized correctly. What is his ceiling and a pretty decent group of corners in this year's class? That is what we will be going over in today's video. But hey guys, if you guys are new to the channel, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Also, be sure to check out my Patreon page, where for $5 a month, you guys will get exclusive access to my in-depth draft guide with over 550 scouting reports and my full big board. It's some of the best work I have put together, and if you guys enjoy my NFL draft content, I highly recommend checking that out. Leave a comment and let me know which players you guys would like to see in a future video, and without further ado, let's take a closer look at Azareyehthomas. Thomas is a player who has been buried under the Florida State depth chart, but he has put up some solid numbers when he's been on the field. In 2023, Thomas played in 493 total snaps for the Seminoles. On the field, he was targeted 41 times, allowing 20 receptions for 297 yards, and had 0 interceptions and 6 pass breakups. This year, in a full-time starter role, Thomas put up similar stats across the board. He played 755 snaps, allowing 17 receptions for 141 yards on 31 targets, and had 1 interception and 5 pass breakups. He's been a reliable player for the Seminoles and has been generating some interesting pre-draft buzz. The first thing that really sticks out when you watch Thomas on tape is his unbelievable size and athletic abilities. He has elite size and length to be a boundary cornerback at the next level. He is 6'2", 198 pounds, and has phenomenal arm length as well. But the part that stuck out to me the most with Thomas is his footwork and his hip fluidity. He has some of the most elite change of direction in the entire draft class. He turns his hips quickly and can stick with receivers down the field. Hip fluidity is something I value heavily in cornerbacks, and I think Thomas has some of the best in the entire draft class. Thomas is a very physical cornerback, and I thought he showed some really good traits, particularly in press man coverage. He has a strong initial punch at the line of scrimmage, and when you mix in his hip fluidity with it, I think he has some elite raw tools to be a press man cover corner. He's physical, he has quick footwork, and has a strong back pedal, and moves really well when he lines up in press. He doesn't give receivers any breathing room, and I love that about Thomas. The last thing that I like about Thomas are his really quick feet. Whether that be in his back pedal or his closing speed, I think he shows really good reaction times. Particularly with the ball in the air, I think he has underrated quickness to get to the receiver and make life more difficult and just make the catch less obtainable. It won't necessarily always show up in box scores, but he has some really good athletic traits that I think NFL teams are going to buy into. The biggest concern with me around Thomas, and something that I think will hurt his draft stock a little bit, is the lack of production. He has 1 interception in his career that came in his final collegiate game. The ball skills aren't amazing, and he hasn't made enough plays on the football that warrant a ton of hype. I'd like to see that improve for him at the next level and see him make more plays on the ball. Another concern I have with Thomas is his tackling ability. His wrap-up technique has been incredibly inconsistent throughout his career, and he has racked up way more missed tackles than I would like to see. He has a 12.6% missed tackle rate throughout his career, and I just think his overall tackling technique could improve. When his technique is sound, he's a hard hitter and makes some really good plays, but it's really inconsistent for him. Lastly, a big concern people seem to have with Thomas is the long speed. He's not a blazer down the field. That's not to say he is slow, but he definitely builds up his speed, and he didn't have the crazy top-end speed that you may necessarily look for in a lockdown corner, and that's something that I think could hurt his stock a little bit. Thomas is a very intriguing player. He has some really impressive athletic tools, elite size, and has been very difficult to throw the ball against, but his production is really not there, and I don't know how good of a tackler he is at this point in time. He is my number 8 cornerback at the time of recording this. Now there still is a lot of time before the draft, and he definitely could move up my board with a strong combine performance. The tools are there, and there's no doubt about that, but I just want to see a little bit more consistency in his game. He is my number 53 overall player in the draft class. In terms of a scheme fit, I like Thomas to play in a heavy man-to-man scheme that plays a lot of press coverage. That's where he's at his best, when he can play on an island, lock wide receivers down one-on-one, and play physical with pass catchers. I think he would thrive on a team like Detroit that has that man-to-man mentality where everyone plays tough, and I think he's just got a really good chance to thrive in a situation like that. Thomas reminds me a lot of Tampa Bay Buccaneers cornerback Jamel Dean. Dean is a really physical and gifted cornerback in man-to-man. Tampa runs a lot of man, and Dean has been incredibly productive throughout his career. He moves well, and he has some really nice physicality on the boundary. Dean isn't a super explosive athlete, and he's not had elite ball skills. I think Thomas shares a lot of those same traits and could have very similar production at the next level. Azareye'h Thomas can cover everywhere. He has versatility, athleticism, and some really nice physicality that I think could really thrive at the NFL level. And ultimately, I believe that Azareye'h Thomas will be a top 75 pick in the 2025 NFL Draft.